title with PK as we continue, but now an NFL version of Sound Off, interesting people saying interesting things. Our buddy and resident former Steeler Ryan Clark is very interesting, and he said this yesterday about Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin.
If you would have told me after Aaron Rodgers beat us in 2011 that both him and Mike Tomlin would not go back to a Super Bowl and we'd be in 2025, I would have bet my entire savings on it, and I would have been broke.
There's a really interesting way of setting up a conversation. It made a headline because the word he used was underachieved. And I know that he meant it respectfully, but we know the world we live in today. People are going to say, oh, he's dissing Mike Tomlin and he's dissing Aaron Rodgers. So let's start with the first of those. Has Mike Tomlin underachieved in Pittsburgh by not getting back to a Super Bowl in the last 15 years?
Not at all, Green. He's going to go down as one of the all-time greats, the first ballot Hall of Famer. He may wind up, as we discussed earlier, with a two-team career, much the way Andy Reid was always a Philadelphia Eagle. Now he's a little bit more of a Kansas City Chief. But when you think about the hundreds of transactions you have every year, and over 18 years, tens of thousands of transactions, never to have a losing season is remarkable.
Yeah, I get what RC's saying. Like that night, you would have thought, oh, we're gonna have this Super Bowl again over and over and over again. It made sense. But it's hard. Like, to get to one Super Bowl, let alone go to multiple. This is one of those things Brady wrecked it for everybody. I just like which recent Steeler team should have been in the Super Bowl based on its roster? I mean, I think Mike Tomlin gets the absolute most he can out of every single team he coaches. And if you want to criticize him for whatever role he has in building those rosters, I think that's fair. But once he gets to coaching it, I don't think there's anybody that can do more with what he's got than Mike Tomlin.
It's an interesting question on the screen. Our Mike T is already bringing up the possibility of Tomlin having a second chapter somewhere else. RC has brought it up. He needs his Andy Reid Chiefs. Do you believe that? We all think Tomlin's a great coach. I know that the local perception of him is a little different in Pittsburgh. That's fine. Do you believe that ultimately he will have a full second act somewhere else?
If he wants to, yeah, I do believe that. And I think, it's interesting when we started talking about that this morning about Andy having a second act in Kansas City. Really, what was the difference? Because I was in Washington during that time when he was in Philadelphia. They had some very, very powerful teams. Donovan McNabb at his height, Michael Vick towards the end. Then he gets to Kansas City. What was the difference for him then? Really, what was it? Obviously, number 15 makes a huge difference. They struck gold with Patrick Mahomes. There's no question about it. But I'll tell you this also. I think he has a relationship with Brett Veach, their general manager, that really transcends even anything that he had during his time in Philadelphia with Tom Heckert, Howie Roseman, whoever it was. And Andy was in control of personnel then. And I think, like as Mike said, look, there's so many moving parts that contribute ultimately to wins and losses. It's really hard to really objectify this kind of thing as either being a success or failure, because so many things are moving and shaking at the same time.
I think if you cut through it all, guys, like if we put 32 coaches up on the board and say we own an NFL team and we can draft any coach, he's in the top 3. Now we can shake it up as
Mike?
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Andy, we know the usual suspect. But if you were talking about value, and if he was a free agent next year, there would be a line around the corner for him.
Fair. So the coaching piece of it, I get. With the superstars, we tend to judge them based on championships, based on rings. Right, wrong, or otherwise, that's part of the conversation. Is it reasonable if RC is saying Aaron Rodgers, whose talent would suggest he could have been as great as any quarterback that ever walked the face of planet Earth, that he, by having never gone back again, has quote-unquote underachieved? Is that one reason?
I don't think so. I think it's unfair. I mean, this is a guy who's won 4 MVPs. He's 5th all-time in touchdown passes. To me, measuring the worth of a player's career based on championships overlooks the challenge of it and how many other components go into it. I think you can stamp a great career by saying I was a Super Bowl champion, but I don't think you have to win multiple of them in order to be judged among the very greats. Again, Tom Brady won 7. Tom Brady was better than Eli Manning and Nick Foles. Does that mean Tom Brady underachieved because he only won 7 and lost those other 3? There's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah, look, Hembo, he always has these great nuggets. Just think about this: 10 playoff losses for Aaron Rodgers. Defense allows 335 points. See, when we try to like for instance, we can compare quarterbacks in particular in football to basketball players as far as do rings really justify or really kind of put a stamp on a player's greatness? Well, think about this. There's 3 phases to football, right? There's offense, defense, and special teams, although when we discuss football, we discuss it as if the quarterback has everything to do with all 3 phases. In basketball, I can almost see some of the discussion surrounding it because what do basketball players get to do? They get to score the ball, they get to defend. They never leave the court, they never leave the field.
There's only 5 of them at a time.
Exactly. So, I mean, it really is one of these arguments that it's really a never-ending rabbit hole is what it is.
That said, and we're not going to get to the Lamar Jackson sound here, but basically he was talking about how we're coming back with a vengeance. The Lamar Jackson is in that place. Josh Allen is in that place. That's every conversation about them. Are they going to finally win the championship? It's not about how great they are. They're great. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are probably about as good as in terms of talent and regular season accomplishment as any quarterbacks that we've seen, maybe ever, certainly in the recent history of football. But there is something that changes when you win a championship.
I see a little bit different. Who much is given, much is expected. And look, when you get paid what you get paid, like, the definition of greatness is make those around you better. And Lou, I get those stats, but like every time you get the ball, maybe you have to score. Hey, Joe Burrow, guess what?
Joe Burrow did just that.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? And he still got hammered last year for not doing enough, which is kind of like, to me, I mean, look, Mike, I mean, you can literally put your team in position where, like, you have the lead, you give up the ball, you kick it off, and maybe your kickoff team surrenders a touchdown.
Well,
maybe you're a quarterback.
Rodgers. They didn't recover an onside kick, and that's why they lost. Josh Allen walked off the field with the lead with 13 seconds left and more.
In Kansas City, right.
Aaron Rodgers played 21 playoff games in his career, and his teams won 11 of them, so that's good. So, but you can nitpick. You can say, like, the last playoff game in Green Bay where they lost to 49ers, he had a bad game.
Yeah.
Right.
They should have scored more points that day. They didn't need to score that many to win. He would probably tell you that. But when you look in totality, he won it early. Like, for years, it was can Peyton Manning win the big one? Can John Elway win the big one? Just the fact that they did it at the end of their careers.
And I'm not saying it's not hard, but what I am saying is it is a way to measure apples to apples. Like,
yes.
It is part of the narrative.
The question is, like, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're one of the all-time greats, and I'm going to tell my grandkids that nobody ever threw the ball like this guy did. Well, how many Super Bowls did he win? Well, he won 1. Like, okay, so he's not on Brady's level. He's not on Mahomes' level, like, in terms of that. But I think winning 1 is a stamp.
For sure.
Look, Dan Marino won none, and he may have thrown the best ball in the history of the sport. LeBron James talked about this yesterday at length. We're going to play that for you later. I think it's part of a bigger conversation. But up next, you do not want to miss this, I promise. Kevin Durant's future.
Hôm nay bây giờ mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn làm lá cây liên tục nha. Từ